A young man named Noah is torn between the life his family expects him to lead and the love he's found with Emily. Faced with impossible choices and overwhelming pressure, Noah must decide whether to follow his heart or live a life dictated by others. Will he choose freedom and love or sacrifice it all for family loyalty? This story is filled with heart-wrenching decisions, unwavering love, and the courage to be true to yourself. Where are you watching from? Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories that will leave you questioning everything. Emily sat on the edge of her worn-out couch, staring at the chipped mug in her hands. The apartment was eerily quiet except for the soft hum of the fridge in the corner. She had spent the last several months searching for a job, but despite her best efforts, no offers had come her way. Bills piled up on the coffee table, and the weight of her financial struggles pressed on her chest, making it hard to breathe. It was moments like these that made her question everything: her choices, her future, and even her worth. But she couldn't afford to dwell on that. She had to keep going, for herself, for her future. Her phone suddenly buzzed, breaking the silence. It was Olivia, her best friend, calling her for what seemed like the 100th time that week. "Emily, are you dressed yet? We're coming to pick you up." Olivia's voice crackled through the phone, lively and full of excitement. Emily blinked, caught off guard.
What? Why would I get dressed? Are we going somewhere?
Olivia let out a short laugh, the sound light and carefree. "You really forgot, didn't you? It's Megan's birthday today. We're all going out for drinks. Come on, you need to take a break and have some fun. I'm picking you up in 20 minutes. "Oh, right," Emily muttered, her heart sinking a little. She had completely forgotten about Megan's birthday, but the truth was, she wasn't sure if she had the energy to go out. It wasn't just the money that was a problem. It was everything else weighing on her mind. "I don't think I can go, Liv. I'm not in the mood, you know. Plus, I don't have any money to spend on drinks." Olivia's voice softened, though it still held that familiar tone of insistence. "Don't worry about the drinks, Emily. We've got you covered. Just get dressed. You need to get out of your head for a little while. Trust me." Before Emily could protest further, a second voice cut through the line. It was Megan. "You're coming, Emily. I don't care if you're tired, you're coming. Don't make me mad on my birthday." Megan's tone was lighthearted, but Emily knew her well enough to hear the playful threat hidden beneath the words. Emily sighed, feeling a pang of guilt. She didn't want to let her friends down, especially not today. Okay, I'll be there." She relented, setting the phone down as she stood up. She didn't have the energy to argue. Besides, maybe being around people would take her mind off her endless worries. An hour later, she was in the back seat of Olivia's car, heading to the bar. The city lights flashed by, casting a warm glow over the otherwise chilly evening. Despite the cool air, Emily felt a rush of warmth in her chest. She had always enjoyed the atmosphere of the bar, the music, the chatter, the way the neon lights made everything feel brighter. For the first time in what felt like ages, she let herself relax, even if only for a little while. When they arrived, the bar was already buzzing with energy. Megan was already there, chatting animatedly with some other friends. Emily hesitated at the door, suddenly feeling self-conscious, but Olivia nudged her forward with a grin. "Come on, we're here to have fun. Don't overthink it." Emily plastered on a smile and made her way to the table. The familiar faces of her friends made her feel momentarily at ease. As they all settled into their seats, a waitress came over to take their orders. Emily's mind briefly wandered, still tangled in the knot of uncertainty and worry that had followed her for months. But she shoved it aside. Tonight, she was going to focus on something else, anything else. The night rolled on with laughter, chatter, and the clinking of glasses. Emily found herself slowly getting lost in the rhythm of the evening, her worries momentarily forgotten. But then, just as she was beginning to feel comfortable, a man walked in with his group of friends. He was tall, wearing a crisp black shirt and a look of quiet confidence. Emily's gaze accidentally met his for a brief moment, and she quickly turned away, feeling an unfamiliar flutter in her stomach. The man's name was Noah, and he was the last person Emily ever expected to meet that night. Noah had a reputation, one that preceded him. He was the son of a wealthy businessman, known for being aloof, distant, and immune to the charms of most women. But Emily couldn't help but notice him as he glanced her way again, his eyes locking with hers for a fleeting moment. She quickly looked away, embarrassed, but the spark of curiosity had already been ignited. As the night wore on, Emily tried her best to push Noah out of her mind. She didn't need any distractions, especially not from someone like him. But the pull of his presence lingered in the back of her mind, gnawing at her. Maybe it was the alcohol, or maybe it was just the way he carried himself, but Emily couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to him than just the cold exterior he projected, and in that moment, she found herself wondering if their paths would cross again. The following days after that night at the bar were a blur for Emily. She had returned to her small apartment, exhausted from the unexpected encounter with Noah, but her mind wouldn't let go of him. She couldn't stop thinking about the way his eyes had locked with hers, intense yet distant, as if he was carrying a weight of his own that mirrored hers. She had tried to shake it off, but there was something about him that lingered. Maybe it was the intrigue, or maybe it was just the way he made her feel like she had been seen in a crowd of people who always overlooked her. It wasn't like she had expected anything to come of it. In fact, she had told herself not to get her hopes up. He was different, rich, handsome, and well-known. The kind of man who never gave women like her a second glance. She was just another face in a sea of beautiful, sophisticated women, right? But then why did it feel like he had made an impression on her? She barely even knew him, yet his presence seemed to have left an imprint in her mind. A week passed, and Emily threw herself into her search for a job, determined to forget about Noah. But that was easier said than done. She couldn't escape the strange pull she felt whenever she thought about him, the way his cold exterior had cracked for just a second when he had looked at her. She was so wrapped up in her thoughts one evening, staring blankly at the job listings on her computer screen, that she nearly jumped when her phone rang. It was Olivia. "You've got to be kidding me. You're not still sitting at home, are you?" Olivia's voice was teasing, but there was concern hidden underneath. "Get out of that house. You've been hiding in there for days. We're meeting up with some people. You need to relax. Plus, I think you might want to come out tonight for a very good reason." Emily raised an eyebrow at her phone. A reason. Is it a date? Because if so, I'm really not interested in... No, it's not like that. Just trust me. "You'll see when you get here," Olivia interrupted, her tone slightly more serious now. Emily felt a mixture of curiosity and hesitation. She didn't really have the energy for another social outing, but she knew Olivia wouldn't stop bugging her until she agreed. Plus, part of her, though she didn't want to admit it, was looking forward to the distraction. She hadn't been able to stop thinking about the man she had barely spoken to that night. She shook her head, trying to banish the thought. All right. I'll be there in 30, Emily said, rolling her eyes and grabbing her jacket off the back of the chair. When Emily arrived at the bar, the familiar hum of music and the buzz of conversation filled the air. Olivia waved her over from a corner booth, a grin plastered on her face. But as Emily approached, her stomach did a strange flip. There, sitting at the table, was Noah. It was like a jolt of electricity hit her when their eyes met across the room. He was laughing with a friend, looking every bit the same as the night she had met him. Effortlessly handsome, effortlessly handsome, effortlessly cold. But this time, something was different. There was a slight shift in his demeanor when he saw her. His eyes lingered just a moment longer, before he looked away, as though trying to hide some sort of recognition. Or maybe it was just wishful thinking on her part. She forced herself to look away, but the flutter in her chest wouldn't stop. What is he doing here? She asked Olivia, her voice slightly shaky. Olivia winked, clearly enjoying Emily's discomfort. Oh, you didn't know. Noah's a friend of Megan's. We all sort of know each other. And guess what? He asked about you. Emily froze, her heart skipping a beat. What? Olivia smiled mischievously. Yeah, he mentioned you the other night. Something about your intense eyes. Emily felt her cheeks flush. This was too much. She hadn't even expected to see him again, let alone have him remember her. I don't know what to say to that, Emily mumbled, her gaze flicking nervously over to Noah, who was now looking at her too, his gaze steady, but unreadable. Olivia, oblivious to Emily's flustered state, nudged her gently. Just go say hi. Don't overthink it. This could be your chance. Reluctantly, Emily made her way over to the table, her palms suddenly sweaty. As she approached, Noah glanced up and offered a small, almost imperceptible smile. For a moment, everything felt suspended in time. She could hear her heartbeat in her ears as she tried to find her voice. Hi, Emily said, managing to sound less awkward than she felt. I didn't expect to see you again. Noah's smile deepened, and there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Curiosity, perhaps, or something else she couldn't quite place. Small world, I guess. I didn't expect to see you here either. They both stood there for a moment, the awkward silence stretching between them before Noah spoke again. It's nice to see you again, Emily. The way he said her name sent a shiver down her spine. She nodded, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Yeah, you too. I didn't expect this. And just like that, the conversation flowed. Not easily, not without awkward pauses, but it felt like something was shifting between them. Something she couldn't ignore. Maybe this was what Olivia had meant when she said there was a reason Emily had to come out tonight. Maybe it was fate, or maybe it was just the start of something she hadn't been ready for. As the night went on, Emily found herself laughing, talking, and even enjoying Noah's company more than she had expected. With each word exchanged, the walls between them seemed to crumble just a little more. But even as they sat there, their chemistry undeniable, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that this was all too good to be true. She wasn't supposed to fall for someone like him, was she? The days following Emily's unexpected reunion with Noah at the bar were a blur. They had exchanged numbers, and though their conversations started out cautiously, they quickly grew more comfortable. Each evening, they found themselves texting, sharing small glimpses of their lives. Emily couldn't believe how quickly things had progressed from that awkward encounter to late-night chats that sometimes stretched into the early hours of the morning. Yet, in the back of her mind, the nagging thought remained, was this all just a fleeting connection? She had to remind herself that Noah, despite his charm and attention, was still the same man with a reputation for being distant, emotionally unavailable. And she was the woman with nothing to her name, just a series of failed job interviews and a mountain of bills. One evening, as she sat curled up in her apartment, her phone buzzed with a message from Noah. I was thinking about grabbing some drinks tonight. Want to join me? Her heart skipped. She hesitated. Would this be just another night of awkward small talk? But as her fingers hovered over the screen, her curiosity won over. Sure. I'll meet you at the usual place. It had been weeks since they last met in person, and though the spark between them had never quite died, Emily wondered if it was just her imagination. The moment she stepped into the bar, she saw Noah almost immediately. He was sitting at their usual spot in the corner, his expression unreadable, as always. But today, there was a subtle shift in his posture, a softness, perhaps, that Emily hadn't seen before. She walked over, her nerves fluttering in her chest. When Noah looked up and caught sight of her, his lips curved into a small, genuine smile that made Emily's heart race. For a brief moment, she was lost in the warmth of his gaze, the way his eyes seemed to soften when they landed on her. "Hey, Emily, you look nice," Noah said, his voice carrying an unexpected tenderness that made her stomach flip. "Thanks," she replied, trying to ignore the flush creeping up her neck. "It's good to see you again." Noah gestured to the chair opposite him. "Sit, relax. I'm glad you came." As Emily took her seat, their conversation flowed easily, far more natural than their first meeting. They talked about everything and nothing. Life, work, their families, and the city they both called home. For the first time, Emily felt like she was truly connecting with him. Not the man everyone else saw, not the distant, aloof heir to a fortune, but the Noah who laughed at her jokes, who shared stories about his childhood, and who seemed to genuinely care about what she had to say. But as the night wore on, Emily couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off. There was a subtle tension between them now, as though Noah was holding something back. She watched him closely, noticing the way his eyes kept flickering between her and the rest of the room, like he was waiting for something, or someone. Just as she was about to ask him what was going on, a woman approached their table. She was tall, with an air of confidence that matched her flawless appearance. She smiled brightly at Noah, and Emily's stomach twisted into knots. "Hey, Noah, long time no see," the woman said, her voice sugary, sweet, but with a hint of something sharper beneath. "I didn't expect to find you here." Noah's expression shifted, but only slightly. He gave her a polite smile. "Hey!" Lisa sat down beside him without asking, her fingers brushing against his arm in a way that made Emily's chest tighten. "I was just passing by and I thought I'd say hello." "I didn't know you were out with someone," she said, her eyes flicking over to Emily with an almost predatory glance. Emily forced a smile, trying to hide the discomfort bubbling up inside her. She knew she had no right to feel threatened, but the way Lisa lingered too close to Noah made something inside her stir. She was suddenly acutely aware of the difference between herself and the woman sitting beside him. Lisa had it all: confidence, beauty, charm. And here she was, just Emily, still unsure of her place in the world. Noah cleared his throat, breaking the tension. "This is Emily," he said, his voice cool. He hesitated, looking between Emily and Lisa. "Someone I've been getting to know." Lisa raised an eyebrow, a subtle smirk playing at the corner of her lips. "Oh, how interesting," she replied, her tone dipping into something more insincere. She stood up, brushing past Noah, and leaning toward Emily with a knowing look. "Well, it was nice meeting you, Emily. I'll leave you two to catch up. Maybe I'll see you again soon, Noah," she said, lingering just a second too long before she turned and walked away. Emily couldn't stop herself from looking at Noah. His expression was unreadable. His jaw clenched slightly as he stared after Lisa. "Is she someone you're seeing?" Emily asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. Noah didn't answer immediately, his gaze still fixed on the door where Lisa had exited. Finally, he turned back to Emily, his eyes softer now. "No, we're not together. She's just one from the past." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Emily didn't know what to make of it. But something inside her clicked. The hesitation in Noah's voice wasn't just about Lisa. It was about her, too. Maybe there was something more between them, but Noah was still fighting whatever it was. Fighting the pull, the vulnerability. Emily took a deep breath, willing herself to stay calm. Well, I'm glad you clarified. I don't want to get the wrong impression. Noah's gaze softened, and he reached across the table, taking her hand gently. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable, he said quietly. But I can't help but feel something when I'm around you. And just like that, Emily's heart raced again. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was the chance she had been waiting for. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, she allowed herself to feel hopeful. As the weeks went by, Emily and Noah's connection grew deeper, but so did the tension between them. Their encounters became more frequent, but each time, Emily couldn't help but feel a looming sense of uncertainty hanging over them. Noah's actions were inconsistent. One moment, he was warm and affectionate, showing her sides of himself she never expected to see. And the next, he would retreat into his cold, distant persona. She tried to brush it off, telling herself that she didn't deserve to expect too much from him. After all, he had made it clear from the beginning that he wasn't looking for anything serious. But the moments they shared, those quiet, intimate exchanges, were enough to make her heart race, to make her believe that maybe, just maybe, there was something more between them. One evening, Emily found herself sitting in her small apartment, staring at her phone as she reread one of Noah's messages. Can we talk? I need to tell you something. Her heart pounded as she debated whether or not to reply. She had grown so used to the on and off nature of their relationship that part of her expected Noah to simply pull away again, as he always did when things started to get too close. But the other part of her, the one that had secretly hoped for something real between them, couldn't resist the urge to know what he had to say. She sent a quick reply, I'll be at the usual spot in an hour. When she arrived, Noah was already there, sitting at the same table they had shared countless times before. His face was unreadable, his eyes lost in thought, staring down at the empty glass in front of him. Emily could feel the weight of the air around them, thick with anticipation. She took her seat across from him, her nerves suddenly on edge. Noah looked up at her, his expression softening when their eyes met. I'm glad you came, he said quietly, his voice tinged with something that almost sounded like regret. Emily nodded, unsure of what to say. He let out a deep sigh, running his fingers through his hair, looking as though he was trying to gather his thoughts. I've been thinking about us a lot lately. About you. His gaze flickered down to the table, his fingers nervously tapping on the surface. The truth is, I don't know what I want, Emily. You're everything I never expected, and I've been scared to let myself feel it. Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had expected him to distance himself, not open up like this. What do you mean? Noah met her gaze, his eyes filled with an intensity that took her breath away. I care about you. More than I care to admit. But every time I let myself get close to you, I feel like I'm losing control. And I'm scared, Emily. Scared of what this means. What you mean to me, he paused, his voice growing softer. I've never been someone who lets people in. Not really. But with you. It's different. Emily swallowed, her throat dry. She wasn't sure how to respond. All the emotions she had been pushing down for weeks, the longing, the hope, the doubt, came rushing to the surface. Noah, I don't want to play games. I don't want to keep second, guessing what this is between us. I've been trying to ignore how I feel, but it's impossible. I care about you too. Noah's eyes softened, his expression vulnerable in a way she had never seen before. But you deserve more than someone like me, Emily. I don't have the answers, and I'm not sure I ever will. My life is complicated, and I can't promise you anything. I can't be the person you need. Emily felt a pang of frustration. Why are you doing this then? Why get so close only to pull away when it gets hard? Noah looked down, his hands clenching the edge of the table. Because I'm scared. I've spent my whole life being guarded, protecting myself from people getting too close. But with you, it's different, and I don't know how to handle it. The vulnerability in his voice, the raw honesty of his words, hit Emily in a way she hadn't expected. For a moment, she wasn't sure what to say. But then, she realized that they were both standing on the edge of something big, something that neither of them could fully comprehend. It was scary, yes, but maybe that was what made it worth fighting for. You don't have to have all the answers, Noah, Emily said quietly, her voice steady. I don't need you to promise me anything. I just want you to be real with me. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm just asking for a chance. Noah looked at her, his expression softening as if he had finally let down his walls, just a little. A chance, huh? He murmured, almost to himself. I'm not sure I deserve it, but maybe I'll take that chance, Emily. Maybe we'll figure this out together. And just like that, the tension between them seemed to lift, replaced with a possibility of something new. It wasn't going to be easy. They both knew that. But for the first time in a long time, Emily felt like they were on the same page, taking the first steps towards something real. She didn't know where this journey would lead, but she was ready to find out. Together. The following weeks were a blur of moments that felt both thrilling and terrifying. Emily and Noah found themselves growing closer, but with every step forward, a part of Emily couldn't shake the feeling that their connection was somehow doomed. Noah's unpredictable behavior continued to pull her in and push her away. He would be warm one moment, his eyes full of unspoken words, and distant the next, as though retreating back into the shell he had built around himself. Emily tried to ignore the doubts that bubbled to the surface, but with each passing day, the uncertainty gnawed at her. She didn't want to lose him, but she also didn't know how long she could keep pretending that everything was fine when it felt like they were treading water in a sea of unresolved emotions. One rainy afternoon, Emily was at work, cleaning a room in Noah's mansion, when she heard his voice in the hallway. She froze for a moment, unsure if she should leave the room and confront him or stay hidden, pretending she didn't hear him coming. But before she could decide, Noah walked in, his gaze sharp but tired. It was the first time she had seen him so worn down, and the sight of him made her heart twist. Emily, he said quietly, his tone uncharacteristically soft. Can we talk? She nodded, though her stomach churned with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. This was the moment. She could feel it in the air, thick with unspoken words. Noah had been distant lately, and she had a feeling that whatever he needed to say would change everything between them. They moved to the sitting room, the large windows allowing a glimpse of the storm outside, a fitting backdrop for the tension in the room. Noah took a seat, his hands folded in his lap, but Emily could see the way his fingers twitched, like he was fighting with himself to say what had been weighing on him for days. I've been thinking about us, Noah began, his voice quiet, as though he was testing the words before he said them. And I realize that I've been pushing you away without really understanding why. Emily's heart skipped a beat.
What do you mean?
Noah hesitated, glancing down at the floor as if searching for the right words. I care about you, Emily. More than I thought I could. But I've always kept myself closed off, and now I'm not sure how to handle everything I'm feeling. He looked up at her, his eyes searching hers as if looking for some sign that she understood. You've gotten under my skin, and I'm not sure how to deal with it. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Noah. I don't want to be the one you have to deal with. I just want to be with you. But I can't keep pretending like everything is fine when I know you're holding back. Her voice faltered, but she pushed on. "If you're not ready for this, for us, then I need to know, because I can't keep falling for someone who won't let me in." Noah's eyes darkened with emotion, and for a moment Emily thought he might pull away. But then he reached out, taking her hand in his with a tenderness that made her chest ache. "It's not that simple," he said, his voice thick with frustration. "I've spent my entire life building walls around myself, my family, my responsibilities. Everything has always been about control. And now with you, it's different. I can't just flip a switch and let everything go." Emily swallowed hard, her throat tight. She could feel the rawness in his words, the weight of everything he had kept buried. She wanted to pull away, to guard herself from the pain that seemed inevitable. But she couldn't. Not when she looked into his eyes and saw the vulnerability that mirrored her own. "Noah, I'm not asking you to change overnight. I just want you to be honest with me. You don't have to have all the answers, but I need to know that you're willing to try. That you're willing to let me in." There was a long silence between them, the sound of the rain against the windows, the only noise in the room. Finally, Noah let out a shaky breath. "I'm trying, Emily. I really am. But I'm scared. Scared that if I let myself care too much, I'll lose control. Scared that I'll end up hurting you, or worse, losing you." Emily squeezed his hand, the warmth of his touch grounding her. "I'm scared too," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't want to live my life afraid anymore. But I don't want to live my life afraid anymore. I want to take the risk. I want to be with you, Noah." Noah looked at her, his expression softening as he reached out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. "Then let's take the risk together," he said, his voice firm yet tender. "We'll figure it out, one step at a time." In that moment, Emily felt something shift between them. The walls that had kept them apart were starting to crumble, piece by piece. She didn't know where their relationship would go, but for the first time, she felt like they were both on the same page. They had a long way to go, but for now, that was enough. As Noah leaned in and kissed her gently, Emily closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the moment fill her heart. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Right there, in Noah's arms, taking the risk together. The days that followed felt like a delicate balance between hope and uncertainty. Emily had opened up to Noah, and for the first time, she felt like they were walking down the same path, albeit cautiously. Noah was trying. She could see it in the little things, the way he made time for her, the way his eyes softened when he looked at her. But there was still that distance, that quiet hesitation that seemed to linger, like he was holding something back. It made Emily wonder if they would ever truly be able to bridge the gap between their worlds, or if this was as far as they could go. One chilly evening, Emily found herself standing in front of Noah's house, her heart pounding in her chest. It was a Friday, the night they usually spent together, but tonight felt different. Noah had texted her earlier, asking her to meet him, but the message had been vague. "We need to talk." The words echoed in her mind as she rang the doorbell. Her stomach twisted in knots. What was this talk about? Was it another step forward? Or was it another step forward? Or was it the moment Noah would pull away again, distancing himself as he had so many times before? The door opened and Noah greeted her with a somber expression, his eyes not quite meeting hers. "Hey, Emily, come in." She stepped inside, the warmth of the house immediately surrounding her. But the chill in the air between them was undeniable. The silence between them felt heavy, thick with words unsaid. Noah motioned for her to sit on the couch, but instead of joining her, he stood by the window, staring out at the rain. Emily's heart rate quickened. This wasn't like the Noah she had gotten used to, the playful Noah who smiled at her and shared jokes. This was someone else, someone distant, someone she wasn't sure she could reach. "I've been thinking," Noah began, his voice low, almost too quiet for her to hear. He turned to face her, his gaze intense, but there was something in his eyes, something troubled. "I don't know if I can do this." Emily's breath caught in her throat. His words hit her like a wave, the kind that pulled her under before she could catch her breath. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as though speaking any louder might shatter the fragile moment they were holding on to. He walked over to her but kept his distance, running a hand through his hair. "I care about you, Emily. I do. More than I thought I could. But there's so much I haven't told you. So much about my life, my family. Things that I can't bring myself to share." He paused, his voice faltering slightly. "I don't want to drag you into my mess, into a life that's full of expectations I can't meet. You deserve more than this." Emily's heart ached. She wanted to reach out to him, to hold him, to tell him it was okay, but something in her told her to stay calm, to not react impulsively. She had spent so much time trying to break through his walls, trying to prove that she was worth it, but now, as his words cut through the air between them, she realized just how deep those walls ran. "I don't want perfection, Noah," she said softly, her eyes locked on his. "I just want you, all of you, even the mess, even the parts you're afraid to show me. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be honest with me. That's all I'm asking for." Noah's jaw tightened, his hands fisting at his sides. He took a deep breath, as though trying to find the words to explain the pain he had been carrying for so long. "It's not just me, Emily. It's everything around me. The pressure from my family, the expectations of what my life is supposed to be. I've been so focused on keeping everyone happy, keeping everything under control, that I forgot what it meant to actually live, to feel something real. But with you, it's different. I don't know if I can handle that." The pain in his voice was raw, and for the first time, Emily understood. She reached for his hand, her fingers brushing his hesitantly. "Noah, I don't need you to have everything under control. I just need you to trust me. Trust that I'm here, that I'm not going anywhere." Noah looked down at their intertwined hands, his thumb gently rubbing the back of hers. For a long moment, he didn't say anything, just looked at their hands like they were the only things holding him together. Emily waited patiently, her heart beating in her chest, hoping that he would finally let go of the walls he had built around himself. Finally, Noah exhaled a long breath. "I'm scared, Emily. I'm scared that if I let myself feel for you, I'll lose control of everything. But I can't keep pretending I don't care about you. I want to try. I want to try for us." The relief that flooded through Emily was overwhelming. And before she knew it, she was pulling him toward her, wrapping her arms around him in a tight embrace. "Then let's try Noah. Together." He held her just as tightly, as though he had finally let go of the weight that had been holding him back. "Together," he whispered, and in that moment, Emily knew that no matter how hard it got, they would face it side by side. For the first time in weeks, she felt like they were truly on the same page, ready to face the mess, the chaos, and the love that was waiting for them. Days passed, and Emily began to feel like she was finally getting a glimpse of the man Noah truly was. His walls, once impenetrable, seemed to be cracking, and for the first time, she felt like she was actually getting to know the real Noah. They spent more time together, going on long walks, cooking dinner together in his massive kitchen, and sharing stories about their childhoods. Stories that felt more vulnerable than anything they had ever shared before. But even as things began to feel more comfortable, there was still that nagging feeling in the back of Emily's mind. The feeling that no matter how much Noah let her in, There would always be something he was keeping hidden from her. That feeling was confirmed one night when they were having dinner at his house. It was a quiet evening, just the two of them, the soft glow of candlelight casting a warm ambience over the room. Emily was laughing at one of Noah's jokes when his phone rang. He looked at the screen for a moment, his expression darkening. Emily noticed the shift immediately, the way his eyes hardened, his jaw clenching as he stared at the phone, unwilling to answer. She couldn't help but feel the tension between them grow. For a moment, she considered asking him about it, but she didn't want to push him further than he was willing to go. Still, the silence that followed felt heavy, like they were both holding their breath. Noah finally set the phone down, his eyes flicking to hers. "Sorry about that," he said, his voice tight. "It's just my family." Emily raised an eyebrow, sensing that there was more to the story. "Your family," she repeated, her voice gentle.
What?
Noah exhaled sharply, pushing his chair back slightly as he rubbed his face in frustration. "It's always something with them," he muttered, not meeting her gaze. "They want me to meet with them again, talk about the future, about responsibilities, things I'm supposed to do." He paused for a moment, his voice faltering as he finally looked up at her, his eyes filled with a quiet intensity. "They don't understand why I've been pulling away." Emily leaned forward, her heart aching for him. She could see how much his family's expectations weighed on him, how they had shaped him into someone who struggled to open up, to feel like he had a choice in his own life. "Noah, I know it's hard, but you don't have to carry that alone." He let out a bitter laugh. "You don't understand. You're different, Emily. You don't have to deal with the pressure. I can't just walk away from my family. I can't just ignore them, not when they've spent my whole life telling me what to do, what I'm supposed to be." Emily felt her chest tighten as she watched him struggle with something deep inside. She wanted to reach out to him, to tell him it was okay, that he didn't have to sacrifice his happiness for anyone else. But she knew that wasn't what he needed to hear right now. He needed space, time, and maybe, just maybe, someone to believe in him when he couldn't believe in himself. "You don't have to be what they want you to be, Noah," she said quietly, her voice firm but kind. "I'm not asking you to change or to give up everything you've worked for. I'm just asking you to let yourself live your own life. And if that means taking a step back from them, then so be it." Noah looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of confusion and gratitude. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of the situation seemed to hang in the air, heavy and unspoken. Finally, Noah nodded, his hand reaching out to take hers across the table. His grip was tight, like he was holding on to the only thing that made sense in a world that felt too complicated. "I don't know what the future holds, Emily," he said softly, his voice filled with uncertainty. "But I know I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to keep pushing you away." Emily squeezed his hand, offering him a reassuring smile. "Then don't," she whispered. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Noah's eyes softened as he looked at her, and for the first time in a long while, Emily saw something in him that wasn't clouded by doubt or fear. It was hope. He had finally allowed himself to believe that he could be happy, that he could have a future that was his own. And that future, she realized, could be with her. As they sat there in the quiet of his dining room, surrounded by the remnants of their meal, Emily felt a shift in the air, a sense of calm that settled between them. They weren't perfect, and the road ahead was still uncertain. But for the first time, it felt like they were moving forward together, not just as two people bound by circumstances, but as two people who had chosen to take a chance on each other. And that was enough. The weeks passed, and Emily and Noah's relationship grew stronger, though not without its challenges. Noah had slowly opened up more, and Emily had come to understand the weight of his family's expectations. Expectations that constantly loomed over him like a dark cloud. She had seen the conflict in his eyes, the internal battle between what he wanted and what he was expected to do. But as their bond deepened, so did the unspoken tension. Noah had come so far, yet there were times when he still retreated, closing himself off again, unsure of how to balance the love they shared and the life his family demanded. One afternoon, as Emily was finishing up some work at Noah's house, she overheard a conversation that made her stomach drop. She'd been cleaning up the kitchen when she heard Noah's voice coming from the hallway, talking to someone on the phone. She wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but the intensity in his voice caught her attention. "I'm not going to marry her, Father," Noah said, his tone firm but strained. "I don't care about the arrangement. I won't do it." Emily froze, her breath catching in her throat. Marry who? And why did it sound like Noah was being forced into something he didn't want? She listened in silence, trying to piece together what was happening. "Noah, this isn't just about you." His father's voice echoed in her ears, cold and demanding. "You need to understand that this is bigger than your personal feelings. You have a responsibility to the family." A chill ran down Emily's spine. Responsibility to the family? Was he talking about a marriage arrangement? Her heart raced as she realized Noah was being pushed into someone he clearly didn't want. She couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness for him. It seemed like he was trapped in a life that wasn't his own, caught between love and obligation. The conversation ended abruptly, and Emily quickly stepped away from the door, her heart pounding. She didn't know what to think. Should she confront Noah about what she had overheard? She didn't want to cause any more tension, especially when Noah was already struggling so much. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized she couldn't ignore it. If he was being forced into something like this, she needed to know. She had a right to understand what was going on in his life, especially if it affected their future together. Later that evening, Noah arrived home, his face tense, his jaw clenched. Emily sat on the couch, her heart heavy with the weight of the question she had been holding on to all day. She had never been the type to confront someone, especially Noah, but something inside her told her it was time. "Noah, can we talk?" she asked softly, trying to keep the edge out of her voice. Noah paused, his eyes flickering toward her, and he nodded, though there was an unreadable expression on his face. He sat down beside her, his posture stiff, his eyes avoiding hers. Emily could sense the tension in the air, but she had to ask. "I overheard part of your conversation with your father earlier," Emily began, her voice hesitant but determined. "And I need to know, Noah, what's going on? What did you mean about marriage?" Noah stiffened, his face hardening as he ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. "It's nothing. You don't need to worry about it." But Emily wouldn't let him dismiss it so easily. "Noah, it's obviously something. I heard you say you weren't going to marry someone. Is this an arranged marriage? Are they forcing you into it?" Noah's expression faltered, and for a moment, she saw the vulnerability in his eyes. "It's not that simple, Emily. My parents, they've been pushing me into an arranged marriage with a woman they've picked out. It's part of the family business. An alliance, they say. They want me to marry her for all the right reasons, but not for the reasons I want." Emily's heart ached as she listened. "Do you love her?" she asked softly, though she already knew the answer. "No," Noah said, his voice low. "But that doesn't matter. What matters is that they want me to do it. They've built my life around this. The business, the family name, all of it. And now They think I should follow through with it. But I can't. I won't. Emily reached for his hand, feeling the rawness in his words. Noah, I don't want you to feel trapped. You deserve to be happy, to make your own choices. You don't have to do this. Noah looked at her, his eyes searching hers as if looking for reassurance. But what if it's too late? What if I've already disappointed them too much? What if I can't change things? Emily squeezed his hand, her voice steady. You're not a disappointment, Noah. You have every right to live the life you want. And if that means stepping away from their plans, then you should do it. I'm here for you, no matter what. Noah's gaze softened, and for the first time, Emily saw a flicker of hope in his eyes. You really think I can do that? Walk away from all of this? I do, Emily said firmly. You don't have to do it alone. Noah looked at her, a small, uncertain smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Then, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can take control of my life. In that moment, Emily knew that they were standing at the crossroads of something monumental. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, and the obstacles would be great, but for the first time, Noah seemed willing to fight for his own happiness. And with Emily by his side, he wasn't alone anymore. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, it felt like they could face it together. The days following their conversation felt like a delicate balance between hope and uncertainty. Noah had finally confessed the full weight of his family's expectations, and while Emily had offered him the reassurance he so desperately needed, she knew that their path forward would not be an easy one. The more they talked, the more they realized how much of Noah's life had been controlled by forces beyond his control, his family's pressure, his future mapped out by others. And now, Emily knew, Noah had to make a choice. To follow the path they had laid out for him, or to carve out his own future, one where he could finally breathe. Despite the heavy conversation, there was a strange sense of calm between them. Noah was trying. He was willing to take the first steps, but every now and then Emily would catch a fleeting look in his eyes, a shadow of doubt that still lingered. She couldn't help but wonder if he was truly ready to leave behind the life he had known for so long. One afternoon, Emily was at home, going over some job applications. The quiet of her apartment, usually a place of peace, now felt like a constant reminder of the uncertainty in her life. Noah had been distant in the past few days, consumed by his family's relentless pressure. It was as if the moment he started to make progress, they pulled him back, keeping him tethered to their expectations. She understood why he hesitated. The weight of his legacy was something that couldn't be shaken off easily. The doorbell rang, pulling her from her thoughts. When she opened the door, she was taken aback to see Noah standing there, his expression unreadable but determined. His usual confident posture seemed slightly shaken, and his eyes were filled with a mixture of resolve and fear. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice low and serious. Emily nodded, stepping aside to let him in. They walked into the living room, the tension palpable between them. She sat down on the couch, not sure what was coming next. Noah didn't sit immediately. Instead, he paced for a moment, hands shoved deep into his pockets. He was thinking, weighing the words that had been building up for days. Finally, he turned toward her. "I met with my parents," he said quietly, his gaze flicking briefly to hers, before dropping to the floor. "I told them I couldn't go through with the marriage. I told them it's not what I want." He paused, his voice shaky. "But they didn't take it well, Emily. They said I had no choice, that it's too late to change things." Emily's heart clenched as she watched him struggle with the words. I knew it wouldn't be easy, she said softly. But you did what you had to do, Noah. You stood up for yourself. Noah let out a bitter laugh, but it lacked humor. I don't feel like I stood up for anything. I feel like I've just made everything worse. My father was furious. He threatened to cut me off, to remove me from everything I've ever known. I don't know what to do anymore. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every movement. Emily, I feel like I'm being torn apart. I thought I was ready to fight for what I wanted, but now, I'm scared. What if I lose everything? What if I lose them for good? The raw vulnerability in his voice struck her to her core. She could see the fear behind the bravado, the uncertainty in his eyes. For all his strength, Noah was still just a man who didn't know how to let go of the life that had been planned for him. Emily reached out, placing her hand gently on his. Noah, you don't have to lose yourself in this. I'm not asking you to abandon your family or everything you've worked for. But you have to know that you're not alone. I'm here with you, and we'll figure this out. You deserve to live your life on your terms, not theirs. And if they can't understand that, then that's on them, not you. Noah closed his eyes, exhaling deeply. For a long time, he didn't say anything. He just stood there, his fingers lightly brushing against hers, as though the simple contact was grounding him, reminding him that he didn't have to face this alone. I don't know if I can do this, Emily, he whispered. I don't know if I can walk away from everything they built for me. But I know I can't keep living a lie. I don't want to marry someone I don't love. I don't want to be the man they want me to be. I want to be with you. Emily's heart swelled with emotion. The words she had longed to hear, the words she knew he was too afraid to say, were finally out in the open. She stood up, taking his hands in hers, pulling him close. You're not walking away from everything, Noah, she said, her voice steady. You're choosing yourself, and that's something worth fighting for. You don't have to face this decision alone. We'll do this together, okay? Noah's eyes locked with hers, and for the first time in weeks, he looked truly free. Together, he repeated, the weight of his words sinking in. It wasn't just a promise. It was a new beginning. In that moment, Emily knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it side by side. It wouldn't be easy. There would be more obstacles, more doubts, more moments of uncertainty. But together, they would fight for a life they both wanted. A life built on love, not obligation. And that, she realized, was worth everything. The tension in the air had grown thicker with each passing day. Emily had thought that, after the decision Noah made to stand up to his family, they would begin to build a life that was truly theirs. But reality wasn't as simple as she had hoped. While Noah had taken a bold step, he was still caught in the whirlwind of his family's expectations, and the burden seemed to weigh heavier with each passing day. Emily watched him, seeing the exhaustion in his eyes, the quiet moments of self-doubt that crept back in whenever he was faced with his family's demands. Noah was trying. She could see that. But the pressure from his family was relentless. They had not taken his rejection lightly. His father had cut ties with him temporarily. His mother had pleaded with him, and even his siblings had begun to show their disappointment. Every phone call, every meeting, every tense conversation was a reminder of the life Noah was walking away from. And while Emily had promised him that she would be there through it all, she couldn't shake the feeling that the weight of his family's disapproval was starting to crush him again. It was one rainy evening when everything seemed to hit a breaking point. Emily had just returned from a job interview, feeling drained but hopeful, when she found Noah sitting on the porch, staring out into the darkened sky. She hadn't expected to find him out there, especially given the storm, but she could see the look on his face. a mixture of frustration and helplessness. Her heart sank, but she approached him slowly, unsure of what to say. Noah turned as he heard her footsteps, a strained smile on his face. "Hey," he said quietly, but his voice was hollow, almost as if he had no energy left to give. "I needed some air." Emily could feel the heaviness in the air between them. He was trying to hide it, but she could see through the facade. She sat beside him, her heart aching at the way he seemed to be unraveling right before her eyes. "You okay?" she asked softly, her voice filled with concern. Noah didn't answer immediately. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, his gaze drifting back to the rain. "I don't know anymore, Emily. I'm tired. I'm so tired of fighting. Every time I think I've made a step forward, it feels like I get knocked back 2 steps." Emily reached out, her hand finding his, her fingers gently curling around his. "You don't have to fight alone, Noah. I'm here. I've always been here." He turned to face her, his eyes searching hers, as if trying to find something he couldn't quite grasp. "But you don't understand," he murmured, his voice trembling slightly. "I've been living in this world where every decision I make is scrutinized. Every move I make is part of some bigger plan. I've been so focused on trying to do what's right, what's expected, that I forgot what it feels like to live for myself. And now that I've tried to change it, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can handle consequences." Emily's heart broke at his words. She could see the fear in his eyes, the fear of losing everything, including her, for choosing a path that was his own. She squeezed his hand, offering him the support she knew he needed, even if he didn't think he deserved it. "You're stronger than you think, Noah. You're already handling it. You've made a choice to be true to yourself, and that's more than most people can say." Noah let out a bitter laugh, though it was tinged with sadness. "But at what cost, Emily? I'm not just losing my family's approval. I'm losing everything I've worked for. The business, the life I thought I was supposed to have. I don't know if I can rebuild all of that. And what if I end up with nothing?" Emily leaned in closer, her voice steady, her gaze never leaving his. "Noah, you don't have to rebuild everything. You don't have to keep living for the future they planned for you. You've already started a new chapter, one where you get to choose your own path. And I'll be here with you every step of the way, whether it's easy or hard." Noah stared at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. "But what if I fail?" he whispered. Emily smiled softly, her thumb gently brushing the back of his hand. "Then we'll figure it out together. Failure doesn't mean the end, Noah. It's just another part of the journey. We're not meant to have all the answers right now. We're just meant to keep moving forward." He exhaled, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. For a moment, he seemed to relax, as if the weight of his fears had lightened, even if just a little. "Thank you, Emily, for not giving up on me." Emily squeezed his hand again. "I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to go through this alone." And in that moment, as they sat together, watching the rain fall around them, Noah finally allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, he could find the strength to move forward. With Emily by his side, he didn't have to have all the answers. Together, they could face whatever came next. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be their choice. No one else's. And for the first time, Noah felt a glimmer of hope for the future. The days following that conversation between Emily and Noah felt like they were trapped in a delicate dance, always moving forward but never truly free. Noah had chosen to defy his family, to take control of his own life, but the consequences were becoming clearer by the day. As much as he wanted to be with Emily, to pursue the future he had dreamed of, the weight of his family's disapproval bore down on him, suffocating him with its intensity. Each day, he was faced with difficult choices. compromise his dreams to appease his family, or continue down the uncertain path he had chosen, the one where Emily was by his side. Emily could see the toll it was taking on him. He had become more withdrawn, lost in thought, constantly torn between the life he was expected to lead and the life he desperately wanted. The Noah she had known, the one who was so determined and sure of himself, was starting to fade, replaced by a man who was constantly second-guessing his decisions. Emily had promised him that she would be there for him, but she could feel his struggle. She couldn't help but wonder if he was beginning to regret his choice. One evening, Noah came to her apartment, his face a mask of frustration and exhaustion. He had been silent for most of the day, his eyes distant, his shoulders weighed down with invisible burdens. Emily noticed the difference the moment he walked through the door, his usual confidence nowhere to be found. "Hey," she said softly, standing up from the couch to greet him. "What's going on? You look like you've been carrying the world on your shoulders." Noah didn't respond right away. He simply dropped his bag on the floor and ran a hand through his hair, his eyes clouded with exhaustion. "I don't know how much longer I can do this, Emily," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I've been fighting them for so long, but every time I think I've made a decision, they pull me back in. I'm losing myself in this battle, and I'm not sure what's left of me." Emily's heart broke at the sound of his voice. She could see the internal conflict raging inside him, the part of him that still wanted to honor his family and their expectations, and the part that knew he couldn't keep living for others. She stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on his arm, offering him the comfort he so desperately needed. "You don't have to keep fighting alone," Emily whispered, her voice steady but full of tenderness. "You've already made your choice, Noah, and I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. But I can't keep watching you destroy yourself like this. You need to let go of their grip on you. You don't have to prove anything to them anymore. You've already proven you're capable of making your own decisions." Noah met her eyes, his gaze searching hers as if looking for an answer, a way out of the labyrinth of expectations he had been trapped in for so long. "But what if I lose everything? What if I end up with nothing? My family will never accept it. My family will never accept it. They'll never let me go." Emily took a deep breath, squeezing his arm gently. "You have to ask yourself, Noah, what's more important? Their approval or your own happiness? You can't keep living for someone else's dream. You're not a puppet, and you don't have to let them control your life anymore. You have a chance to build something real, something that's yours, but you have to choose it. You have to choose yourself." Noah stood there in silence, his face a mix of confusion and realization. Emily could see the internal battle waging within him. It wasn't easy. Letting go of everything he had known, the life he had been raised to inherit, was a terrifying thought. But Emily's words lingered in the air, a beacon of hope amidst the storm. "I don't know if I can, Noah," finally admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "You don't have to know all the answers right now," Emily said, her tone gentle yet firm. "You just have to take the first step, and I'll be with you every step of the way." Noah looked at her then, his eyes softening as he took in the sincerity in her words. He knew she was right. He had been so afraid of losing everything that he had forgotten what it meant to fight for something that truly mattered. It wasn't just about love or family or the business. It was about living a life that felt authentic, a life where he could finally breathe freely without the weight of others' expectations. Taking a deep breath, Noah nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll try. I'll take that step. For me, for us." Emily smiled, relief flooding her chest as she reached up to gently touch his face. "That's all I need to hear. Noah, we'll face whatever comes next together, For the first time in weeks, Noah allowed himself to relax, his tense shoulders loosening as he exhaled a long breath. The weight that had been crushing him for so long seemed to lift, even if only for a moment. He was ready to take that first step. And with Emily by his side, he knew he wasn't alone anymore. Together, they could face the future, whatever it held. The day of their family vacation arrived, but Noah and Emily were no longer the same. The days leading up to the trip had been filled with intense discussions, moments of doubt, and silent decisions. For all the progress Noah had made in asserting his own desires, there was still a part of him that felt deeply conflicted. His family's expectations still loomed over him, like an ever-present shadow, threatening to pull him back into the life he no longer wanted. And yet, Emily had become the constant that anchored him, the one person he could rely on, the one who believed in him even when he struggled to believe in himself. The plan was simple. They would go to the family resort for a few days to escape the constant pressure of business meetings, family obligations, and the looming uncertainty that hung over Noah's future. The thought of spending time with his family, including his fiancée Laura, made Noah tense, but Emily's unwavering support gave him a small measure of comfort. As they packed their bags, Noah knew that things between him and Laura were never what his family imagined. It wasn't that he didn't care about Laura. She was a wonderful person, but he couldn't ignore the fact that they were being forced into something neither of them truly wanted. Yet, here they were, going through the motions, pretending that everything was okay. When they arrived at the resort, the atmosphere was far from the peaceful getaway Noah had hoped for. His family was all smiles on the surface, but the tension beneath was palpable. Laura, always the perfect picture of grace, had that glint of satisfaction in her eyes. Emily, on the other hand, couldn't help but feel like an outsider in the sea of wealth and status that surrounded them. She tried to hide it, tried to enjoy the vacation, but the undercurrent of discomfort never really left her. It wasn't until later that evening, after a rather awkward dinner with his parents, that Noah and Emily found a rare moment of solitude. They had slipped away from the noise of the family, seeking refuge in the quiet of the resort's secluded garden. The night air was cool, the sounds of nature surrounding them, offering a sense of peace that felt almost unreal, given the chaos they had just left behind. Noah turned to Emily, his face troubled. "This isn't what I wanted. This isn't the life I dreamed of. It's all too much. Too many expectations. Too many expectations. Too many people telling me what to do. And Laura." His voice trailed off, the words heavy with a mix of guilt and frustration. "I never asked for this." Emily stepped closer to him, her hand gently brushing against his. "Noah, I know this isn't easy. I see what you're going through, but you don't have to keep carrying this burden alone. You've made the right choice. You've chosen yourself, and that's something I'll always support." He shook his head, his eyes flickering with uncertainty. "But what if I've ruined everything? What if my family can't forgive me for this? What if they cut me out for good?" Emily squeezed his hand, stepping even closer, her presence grounding him. "You didn't ruin anything. You just started living your own life. And if they can't see that, then that's on them, not you. You deserve to be happy, Noah. You deserve to be with someone who loves you for who you are, not for who they want you to be." Noah looked into her eyes, the storm of uncertainty in his gaze slowly beginning to fade. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he could breathe again. "I'm scared, Emily," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Scared that I'll lose everything. Scared that I'll lose you." "You're not going to lose me," Emily reassured him softly. "No matter what happens, I'm here. We'll face it together." Noah reached for her, his hand gently cupping her cheek, and for the first time, he allowed himself to fully relax. The weight of his family's expectations, the pressure to conform, it all seemed to melt away as he held her close, He realized then that the fear he had been holding on to wasn't just about losing his family. It was about losing himself. And now, with Emily by his side, he had the strength to reclaim his life. As they stood together, the world around them seemed to fade into the background. There was no more fear, no more doubt. It was just the two of them, facing whatever came next with the understanding that they would navigate it together. And that, Noah realized, was all he needed. The next morning, as the family gathered for breakfast, the usual tension hung in the air. But Noah felt something shift within him. He wasn't the same person he had been when he arrived. He wasn't the man his family had tried to mold him into. He was Noah, the man who had chosen his own path, the man who had the courage to stand up for himself, and the man who had found love in the process. As the day went on, Noah knew that things with his family wouldn't be easy. There would be more battles, more decisions to make, but one thing had become clear. He was no longer afraid. He had Emily by his side, and that was enough to face whatever the future held. Together, they could create their own destiny, a destiny that was theirs and theirs alone. The story of Noah and Emily teaches us a powerful lesson about the importance of staying true to ourselves, even when the weight of expectation seems unbearable. It's easy to get caught up in the dreams and desires of others, whether it's family, society, or the people around us, leaving us to feel trapped in a life that doesn't truly reflect who we are. But true happiness lies in the courage to make our own choices, to embrace the path that resonates with our deepest desires, even when it's difficult and uncertain. Noah's journey shows us that it's never too late to reclaim control of our lives, no matter how daunting the consequences might seem. It's about finding the strength to stand up for what we believe in and to surround ourselves with people who support us for who we truly are, not for what they expect us to be. And for Emily, her unwavering support reminds us that love isn't just about being with someone through the easy moments, but about being there in the toughest times, offering a hand when the world feels like it's falling apart. So, take this story to heart. Your future is yours to shape, and the courage to follow your own path will lead to true fulfillment. Don't be afraid to break free from the chains of other people's expectations, and remember, the right people will always stand by your side. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Where are you watching from? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories and lessons that can help you along your own journey. We look forward to sharing more with you